We are going to follow the money.
Everything you need to know can be understood with this simple phrase: follow the money. And believe me, that's what's happened.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
Welcome to College Sports Follow the Money, an all-new podcast diving into the critical issues surrounding the big business of college sports. I'm Andrew Monaco, joined by former president of Texas A&M University and former chancellor at the University of Missouri, Dr. Bowen Loftin, and former vice president and general manager of Fox Sports Southwest, Jon Heidtke. From NIL to the transfer portal and opt-outs, to the college football playoff, conference realignment, and more, we tackle the key issues facing college athletics today and into the future.
I need to feel you, Jerry. Show me the money. Jerry, you better yell. Show me the money. Show me the money. You love this black man.
We welcome you to another edition of College Sports Follow the Money. Along with Dr. Bowen Loftin, with Jon Heidtke, I'm Andrew Monaco, and we are very pleased on this episode to welcome in Brett Daniels. He's the Senior Director of Communications and Branding for the College Football Playoff. Brett, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome, and we say this is the most wonderful time of the year, not just for the holidays, the College Football Playoff.
It's certainly become that as our playoff eased into December here last year. We certainly saw the excitement that we brought to campuses, those 4 games last year in year 1, and really looking forward to seeing it again this year, year 2. And it's exciting to be headed down to College Station for one of those games.
Yeah, Brett, I know you're coming down here, though. He's been down here before. Just FYI, Brett follows the same illustrious career as both Andrew and Dr. Loftin has. He was a guest lecturer in my class a semester or 2 back. So we've got the creme de la creme of guest lecturers here on today's call. But Brett, one of the things here for A&M, they're very excited. First time ever to be in the CFP. The excitement on this campus is incredible. You'll get to experience firsthand when you get down here. But tell us a little bit. One of the things, a lot of questions I've been asked is, as we move into the CFP, this is your game. It's not 12th man doing tickets. Could you kind of walk us through a little bit about what goes all into the CFP and how these games kind of differ from other traditional bowl games?
Sure. It is kind of a combination of a local host. So we definitely want this game to feel like, a home game there for the Aggies. We're not coming in and taking over the game operations. We're not going to try to tell you guys how to run your game. You guys have earned home field advantage. We want that right to be something special for the fans in the stands that day. So when you get in there, you'll see we'll have a few additional signs and some things that we're doing from a decor perspective and on the video boards to make it feel like an elevated game, that it is a playoff game. It's not just another regular season game there at Kyle Field. But from a financial side, that's kind of where you see some of the differences. So as you mentioned, the ticketing. So the ticket revenues do funnel back to the CFP and go into our large coffers that get then shared across all of the 11 or 10 conferences in Notre Dame, the 11 entities that are a part of the CFP. But revenues from parking, concessions, merchandise, those are all still school dollars that they get to keep there. They continue to operate everything like it's a normal regular season game. So you'll see the same ushers, the same people in the stands, checking tickets, all of those kinds of things from an operational, functional standpoint. Again, it's a Texas A&M home football game.
And as far as suites, how does that work out?
Again, the inventory of tickets and suites, while we carve out a small block for the visiting team, about 3,500 tickets, which would include the band, if Miami is bringing their band, so they'll be part of that allotment. A little bit larger than maybe it is for regular SEC games. And location, we have some requirements of making sure like the band and the families are in the lower bowl in, corner or somewhere down low. Otherwise, the rest of the building, season ticket holders, suite owners, they have access to all of those tickets in that inventory as they would in the past. So I think my understanding the other day, you had 40,000 student tickets that went on sale and people lined up for them. And from what I understand, the game is a very hot ticket and was sold out pretty quickly down there.
Yeah, I think, again, you're going to see, I don't know how they went last year. It looked like, from just watching them on TV, it looked like they had great crowds. But I think it's going to be pretty, A&M's going to probably take it to a new level this weekend.
Yeah, it kind of varies by campus and the location. This is the time of year a lot of students have headed home for the holidays. Folks are kind of shutting down, winding down on campus. But we definitely saw everybody flocking back to the locations last year there, especially Notre Dame. We had a huge turnout at Ohio State. I think our ticket guys said we had 3 of the 7 largest college football stadiums in the country that were home hosts last year. Our small venue was Notre Dame. That's like, 75, 80,000. So we had, I think it was almost 400,000 tickets sold in the first round between all of those different venues. So looking forward to it again. Obviously, what you guys have down there at College Station is one of the big ones, and we're looking forward to packing that in.
Brett, I know this doesn't fall under your purview, but Mike Elko said a couple business leaders reached out to him and said, now that finals are over and usually this place is empty, thanks for having another home game. Economically, it's going to generate a lot for Bryan College Station. Yeah,
we've heard that, especially from Texas last year, a lot of that in Austin when them hosting Clemson in that game. And same thing up at Penn State. It brings back all those fans, all of that energy and excitement back into the local community that a lot of people thought, a week or two ago was all wrapped up for the season. So I'm sure that I know hotels are packed. That's one of the big challenges we have in planning for these games is we go out and identify, 50, 60 different locations that we think might be hosting a game in the upcoming season and start blocking hotel rooms. We got to do it for obviously the visiting team, but then ESPN network and some of our staff and things like that, game officials. So a lot goes into it. And I know the hotel rooms are a hot commodity down there because of that.
Brett, it's funny that you mention that because this isn't something that you wait until a week out or even the announcement of the team. Texas A&M has known that this is a possibility. You try to plan out as far in advance as you possibly can, do you not?
We do, yeah. We start communicating and we host a webinar in late summer, right at kind of the start of the football season. And we open it up to all 136 schools that have a shot to be in the playoff. And we just want to walk them through all of the operational logistics, travel, security, ticketing. Each of our different departments spends a few minutes providing broad picture updates of things that are going on to be thinking about, things in the, down in the weeds as far as ordering an additional set of credentials. If you're going to go ahead and order your season credentials, throw an extra one in if it's easier than trying to print something, in December. But to begin thinking about all those kinds of things, communicating with campus. I know some campuses, this is, fall commencement time, and they have commencements going on. And so you're going to want to work around those kind of schedules, as well as the academic calendar. Last year, for example, Notre Dame wrapped up their finals right before the game on that Thursday. They kept their dorms open an extra couple of days to let students stick around to attend the game there on Friday night against Indiana last year. So that's the kind of pre-planning and communication. You don't want to wait and do that, December 1st. You do that well in advance when it starts to look like you might host.
One other interesting thing too, Brett, I've got a couple of questions on this, is as you look at, you talk about, again, the revenue, this is all part of the CFP revenue that goes to pay all the participants as your agreement lines out for. I was trying to get an understanding as how does that sort of that revenue flow? I've seen that each conference gets for each member appearances. There was it was like $4 million or something like that. Could you kind of walk through that economic model that how these schools and conferences benefit?
Sure. So for this year and for last year, teams that earned a spot in the playoffs get $4 million for making the postseason. In addition to that, we provide each team $3 million to cover travel costs and operating costs. So, for example, for Texas A&M, that $3 million goes to cover game day staff and parking, printing those credentials that we talked about, all of the expenses that are associated with hosting a home football game. For University of Miami, they use that same $3 million to cover their buses, hotels, charter planes, all that kind of stuff. So rather than dealing with them on an itemized billing after the fact, we kind of reviewed with schools over the last few years, what does it cost to travel for your team? Flying the band from Miami, for example, or in your case, if you win in advance up to the Cotton Bowl, getting the buses together for the band to come up along with team travel, staff, those kinds of things. So with the $3 million number seems to be more than adequate in talking to the schools about covering any and all travel costs. And it's more than enough if you're the home team to cover all of your game operating expenses. in addition to knowing that you're going to be able to collect some of the revenues there off of the parking and concessions and so forth. So that kind of goes round to round. So that $3 million is awarded for each round as you advance to cover those travel costs, as well as that $4 million lump sum. As we move into the future, starting next year, right now we're wrapping up year 12 of our original 12-year agreement with ESPN and the Bowls. So starting next year, we're under a new television agreement with ESPN, new relationships with the Bowls and those contracts. That lump sum $4 million payment goes away. And now all of the revenues are just shared amongst the conferences in kind of a percentage breakdown that they've all agreed to amongst themselves as far as what that lump sum payment goes out to the 10 different entities and Notre Dame. And then it's up to, in your case, the SEC. Internally, they have policies and procedures in place of how they divvy up that CFP money amongst the different members there. So you've seen the ACC talk about over the last year or two some of the success bonuses that they're paying out within the conference. That's how they distribute some of this lump sum that we pay them in the spring each year once we've settled the books on our playoff.
You mentioned the Cotton Bowl, Brett. That's the winner of Miami. Texas A&M goes there. Quarterfinals, cotton, orange, rose, sugar. Semis are the Fiesta and the Peach. Can you let people in know how that rotates and how they are picked each year? They are a part of the process. They're a part of their bowls, but they're also a part of the playoff.
Yeah, so those six are, now we call them our CFP bowls. For a while there, they were called the New Year's Six, which was kind of funny because half of them were never played on New Year's Day anyway, but they all got the New Year's Six name. We kind of now moved to the CFP Bowl. So we have a relationship with them over the last 12 years, and they move into the next 6-year cycle as well. So we're locked in. Our quarterfinals and semifinal games will continue to be played in those 6 bowl games that you just mentioned. And then amongst that 6, we've had a kind of a 3-year rotation where every third year you were a semifinal, and then you rotated off and you were in the first 10 years, just your regular bowl game. And then the last 2 years, or this year and now last year, you became the quarterfinal games. So that it's just a kind of a steady rotation. Everybody got, one roll every 3 years as a semifinal, and then the other 2, they were their own bowl game. As we move forward now, we're going to build out a new rotation similar to that so that each bowl continues to host a semifinal, once every 3 years. And then the other 2 years, there'll be quarterfinals. We do have to work, with ESPN and the network just to make sure we're spreading those across the different time zones just for kick time purposes, especially on New Year's Day when we have those 3 games, to make sure we have the right bowl games available within those windows.
And those are coveted, correct?
Yes. You can talk to the folks at the Peach Bowl and the Cotton Bowl, and they'll tell you how glad they were 12 years ago to get the invitation to get back in the mix, because those were the 2 that were sort of on the outside in the original BCS arrangement of those games. And back in those days, those bowls, instead of hosting their bowl game, they hosted this championship game or as an additional game. Now, in the new CFP model over the last 12 years, we've rotated that championship game to a neutral site, each year. Sometimes it is in a city that has hosted a bowl. Like this year, our game is in Miami and the Orange Bowl's involved. Peach Bowl last year, for example. But next year, our game moves to Las Vegas. And so obviously there's no bowl game associated with that. We're taking our game to Tampa back again in a couple of years. Again, no playoff game associated with those locations. So it's more coincidence in stadium and geography of why sometimes our championship game lands in a bowl site as well. But they're two separate games, and there's always going to be an Orange Bowl, even if the championship game's in Miami.
And Brett, you've had quite a storied career, in my opinion. Looking at your bio, it's very impressive. Can you just tell us what you've done before in other jobs you've had has played into your ability to do the job you have right now?
Sure. No, I appreciate it. I've been very fortunate in my career with a lot of the opportunities that I've had. Started my career with the Dallas Cowboys as an intern. I came over from SMU, graduated SMU, and started there as an intern, and took me 25 years to find my next job. But through that, I got a lot of opportunities working with the Cowboys in PR and communications through the first part of my career. And then I moved over a little bit more onto the marketing sponsorship side, corporate communications, was heavily involved in the campaign and then the construction of AT&T Stadium. And the kind of task with the Jones family is that stadium was going up of like, we're building this to host big events. So somebody's got to go find us some big events. And they looked at me and said, here, you go do this, figure it out. So I got the chance to, bid on Super Bowls, NBA All-Star Game, the NCAA Final Four, and kind of got into the event business, as a Dallas Cowboy employee, trying to come up with things to host there at AT&T Stadium, and was fortunate to be a part of putting on the Super Bowl and the Final Four there at the stadium. The NBA All-Star Game, we set a record with Mark Cuban and the Mavericks hosting that game over there back in the day, and it was a great run. Then I got an opportunity to go to Atlanta and work at Georgia Tech as a deputy athletic director there, and kind of get back on the campus side of things a little bit, and really enjoyed my time there, working with student athletes and the coaches and all the other sports. But while I was there, Atlanta was kind of going through the same experience, building Mercedes-Benz Stadium that I'd lived through here in my Dallas days. And so they kind of dragged me into the mix there, helping them bid on Final Fours and Super Bowls, and ultimately brought me over from Georgia Tech to run the host committee, put on the Super Bowl there just a few years ago. But I'll say the one downside of being on the event side is you work yourself out of a job. Because once the event's over, everybody says, thanks, you did a great job, and they move on to the next city. So I learned from that to let's get back on the event side. And so I moved over to the college football playoff. So now I get to go to all those different cities every year instead of being the one that says goodbye.
So, Brett, how do you see now from your days on the Super Bowl host committee to what the CFP is becoming? And obviously it's big already, but how bigger do you think it can get as time goes on through this process?
And I think we've got a lot of opportunity to grow the playoff. I think moving to the 12 teams, as you saw last year, is a really great first step. The excitement, the enthusiasm, the TV ratings for all of the games was, through the roof. And I think with the new metrics that are being applied on TV ratings this year, I think we're going to see even more of that with the postseason. And I think it gives us a chance to build. When you only had semifinals and a championship game, we kind of went dark the entire month of December. And now there's a buzz. We've got, a week of hype and build up, and then we play these games. And then we turn around in 10 days and you've got the quarterfinals, and a week later, the semis. And there's this really crescendo moving up. So I think we've got a lot of opportunities to kind of grow things. We're looking, how do we expand the championship weekend? What are some other events that we can start adding to that? And really building it out like you see the NFL's done with the Super Bowl, of adding an awards show. NFL Honors is now an event that they host. We've talked about, is there opportunities to bring that college football awards show to our event? Are there other things that we can build up on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday as people are coming into town to really make this, really a week-long event like you see now with the Super Bowl?
And you feel pretty confident that these first-round games are going to stay on campus as we move forward too. Seems like that's been a good model so far. Yeah,
there's definitely an appetite to keep those there and stick with this first-round campus site thing. The challenge, there's two schools of thought when it gets to quarterfinals of trying to put more games back on campus. But one of the challenges you guys can all appreciate there being at College Station is January 1st in College Station, campus is pretty much a ghost town. That time of year, the campus is shut down. They've turned off the lights and closed everything down for the holidays. And so trying to recreate that atmosphere January 1st. And if you think about some of the northern markets, I know everybody loves to watch a TV game when there's snow falling, but people trying to get there and be a part of it, it's a whole different experience. And so we've heard from a lot of campuses that they love hosting this first game, but trying to do something on January 1st would be problematic on a campus. So I don't know if we're going to be there anytime soon, but we certainly love the way these first round games have been this first year. And like I said, looking forward to year 2 here.
Brett, to follow up the previous answer, I love the idea of being able to celebrate all of college football going into that championship game. Would that be part of the mindset of really allowing it to be, okay, this is the pedestal that college football is on leading into the championship game?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to go to a Final Four, but they build a lot of events and activities around that Final Four that coaches convention is in town. The coaches are all there. They do their Hall of Fame announcements as a part of that weekend. Things like that. What are the events that we can build around our game now to drive more college football centric people into the market, to have those meetings, have those conversations, have a reason to come to the championship game, to make it a bigger and better event because everybody else is there. It kind of feeds on itself. And so the more events and the things that we can drive people there to celebrate the great season that we've had and celebrate college football, we think it's the perfect landscape to do that right there around the championship weekend.
This sport is still ascending, isn't it?
Yes, definitely so. And I think we're seeing it even more and more. You're obviously seeing the dollars that are coming in on the investment side and all the talk with the TV networks of how do we continue to grow these audiences. You're getting, more and more games spread across the week and the weekend and these various time slots. I think we've got nowhere to go but up with this game. And there's certainly some things that need to be addressed and worked through. I know the commissioners are hard at it when we talk about NIL and the house settlement and transfer portal and signing days, practice windows and all those things that the coaches and the athletic directors and commissioners are focused on. And so while we're a big part of that, we know that there's a much larger picture and a lot of those kind of things that group is prepared to work through and continue to make the game great.
So, Brett, how big is the staff that you're part of that actually supports the entire committee? I mean, there must be many people behind the scenes working this. Give us a sense of the scale.
Sure. We've got 24 full-time staff members here at the CFP. So while that may not seem like a very big number in the grand scheme of things, we definitely count on a lot of contractors and vendors. Because our work is seasonal, it's hard to really ramp up with a full-time staff, the number of people that we'd need for a weekend like this, and really a month now as we talk about it. So we rely on a lot of outside companies, contractors, vendors that work in the event space and in the college football world. And you see a lot of the same people that are working Formula One races. They're working the Super Bowl. They're working Major League Baseball All-Star games. So it's a lot of the same entities that work around these other big events. They're a big part of our team. We're really just kind of the ones directing the choir, so to speak, or directing the orchestra. And they're the ones that are all out there helping us make this thing as great as it is.
I love that analogy. I love the analogy. Again, there's sporting events, and that's exactly what this is.
It's funny. I talk to a lot of my vendors and contractors all the time. My IT specialist does all the IT for the NFL. So he's always over in Europe getting ready in the fall for all those international games. So I'm getting emails and phone calls at all these random times. The person who helps me with media day that we do also does a lot of stuff with Formula One. So he spends like 2 months in Las Vegas getting ready for that November race. So I'm always dealing with him from Las Vegas. So these guys are the best in the business. They're working, like I said, NFL International. They're working at the Super Bowl, working Formula One races. So they all know what they're doing, and they're right in their wheelhouse. That's their specialty.
Well, it's an exciting time, Brett, and I know people down here in Aggie Land are going out of their minds getting ready for this game here. So it's something special to see, and I hope you and your guys' staff enjoy it when you guys are down here. And again, anything you can say as we look to the future, like some new things that you're going to be doing in Miami and for the championship game that hadn't been in the past, that the Aggies might be looking forward to, assuming we can get there.
I think it'll all be new for the Aggies, won't it? I don't remember the last time they were in this thing.
I think it was 39, right, in the old Tulane Stadium, I think, if that's still around.
Even I wasn't born then, guys. Come on.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great time. I think it'd be nothing more. Like I said, I grew up in Oklahoma. I went to SMU, so I've been around Aggies my whole life. Seen it. I've been down to games before. It's been a long time since I've been down that way. But I'm looking forward to getting down there this weekend. There's nothing more than I love watching the Corps marching around on the field at halftime. The traditions, the history that you guys have there in College Station with the Aggies is something most people just can't really appreciate until you go down there and you see it in action and you live around a lot of Aggies and you realize just what the passion and the fire and the loyalty that you guys have to that program. So I know it's going to be a special, special day. I can already envision the crowd rocking there at kickoff and what that whole place is going to be like. It's going to be nuts.
So John, one piece of advice for you, Brett, is this. John has several spare rooms. He'd be happy to rent them to you, give you a nice place to hang out, okay?
I figured you already had him on VRBO.
Friends and family discount for you, my friend. So.
Brett, thank you so much for joining us. Safe travels. Happy holidays to you.
I appreciate that. You guys
wish
too.
you all the best. Thanks for doing this.
Look forward to seeing you guys Saturday.
Look forward to that as well. Thank you, Brett. Brett Daniels is the Senior Director of Communications and Branding for the College Football Playoff. That's just one of the topics for us as we continue with college sports. Follow the money. Dr. Loftin, you brought this to our attention. Looking at it, the word visionary probably does not do enough justice for Chuck Ninus, former Big 8 commissioner, interim commissioner for the Big 12, involved in so much in the NCAA, passed away at the age of 93. The National Football Foundation used that word visionary, and I think Steve Hatchell was very correct in talking that. Chuck was a special, special person.
He was. I never worked with him very much directly, but his Big 8 work was sort of a precursor to what happened with the formation of the Big 12, which was a very different kind of conference initially, especially. But what really struck me the most about him was when he came back to the Big 12 after BB was shown the door, he really brought order to chaos. He really brought a lot of common sense, very hard work, and very focused attention to keeping the conference together. And what the Big 12 is today, it can really owe a lot, in my opinion, to Chuck. And so I just remember him fondly, and as a man who cared, who worked hard, and really was successful in so many ways.
On the
I've
forefront.
Go
ahead, John.
Chuck, too. So in 1983, the CFA was established as a result of the Oklahoma-Georgia suit against the NCAA. And Chuck was the head of the CFA. And I was doing my master's thesis on the CFA and its impact on the NCAA. And this was pre-internet. This is pre-cell phones. I mean, you got to write letters. If you're lucky, you put a call into the office and maybe somebody calls you back, maybe somebody won't. And I remember calling someone in the secretary or their office there and said, "Hey, I'm doing a thesis on this and would love to get Mr. Ninus's, ask him a couple of questions." And literally within probably less than an hour, I got a call back from Chuck saying, "Hey, you're the first student that I've ever seen following this stuff. I want to get to know you." And so he spent probably an hour on the phone with me and letting me go over questions for it. And every time I saw him since then, he'd always ask me, "Now, did you got an A on that paper, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah, Chuck, I did. All thanks to you." So we would always have a chuckle and talk about what was going on in television over those years.
That's fantastic. That's just awesome. And that's what got me about Chuck. He was involved in so much. This wasn't someone on the outside who was just giving an opinion. He lived through an awful lot in the NCAA. When I was just looking into this, I called up a podcast. West Virginia owes an awful lot of being in the Big 12 because of Chuck Ninus's work. They were almost on the outside looking in.
Exactly right.
You love those kind of people shaping, right? And those and visionaries like that can be missed. We sometimes don't always focus on them, but just what a fantastic career. Dr. Loftin, thanks for bringing that up.
We should acknowledge the people who made all this stuff happen. We talk about it every week. He was just a unique individual in terms of his capability. And he wasn't the kind of guy that yelled and screamed. He just got the job done. And like I said, John, he loved people. He had no problem talking to anybody who had a question or some kind of issue to resolve. He dealt with them.
And the thing I always liked about him too, if you run him in this industry, you can imagine that you run into some folks with some serious big egos, and he never had one. And I think when he was running the CFA at that time, that was probably the most powerful organization in college sports. For what they built there. And then over time, those television agreements were negotiated by the conferences, and the CFA, eventually had lived out its usefulness. But again, his vision, to your point, I think, again, we miss guys like that today in the industry, because that's the type of a vision that we need today to kind of get us through these choppy waters and get to a place where, again, that there's a little bit more sanity in what we're dealing with right now. So it's, again, he will be missed. A great, great man.
He certainly foresaw an awful lot that's happening in the NCAA now. That foresight of his. He kind of, if we had listened closely, it could have been the roadmap to follow as we get here to 2025, going on 2026. Since we were last together, Utah has $500 million in private equity. And Dr. Loftin, they don't call it equity any longer. Capital infusion now for Big 12 schools, up to $30 million. That's another one of the headlines.
What's clear is that selling equity in a conference or a school, for that matter, is a bit of a challenge. And so we've had people talk about it. We've had various organizations come and say, we can give you this much money, and the money is not small, but we want a piece of the action. And that's kind of been a problem. And that's what kind of derailed the $2.4 billion deal for the Big Ten, for example. But Utah figured out a way to work with, it's Otro, I think. Capital was their partner there, and they figured a way to work with them in a way to have revenue come into their school without giving them specific ownership of pieces of the institution or its athletic program. And yet I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen here. It's going to be a business proposition, I believe, an operational thing where this particular organization, Otro, is going to come in and work with them to help them expand the revenue base. And that's going to be the way the school actually justifies, I think, the infusion of capital here coming in from Otro. And we'll just have to watch carefully to see how it happens. And what's interesting is that Utah has done this as one school. But now the Big 12 is coming in and talking hard about Redbird, who is a fairly well-known organization within the athletic world right now, and Weatherford infusing money into the Big 12, and not for equity ownership, but as a business partnership that I believe they see will grow their business opportunity. Redbird's pretty involved in quite a few things, as Learfield is and as Playfly is and things like that. And so I see them coming in here and saying, we're going to give you money, but our reward is going to be what comes out of this in terms of business opportunity for us to engage in. Is that what you see, guys?
I see some of that. I think, again, the hard part with all this is trying to figure out, okay, it's not like universities get bought or sold. So if the valuation goes up, they're not able to cash out and capture that upside on their initial investment. So I think what I've seen, some interesting thing about what the Big 12's doing is, their deal's more, it's from what I've read, it talks about ability to borrow money out of that $500 million. So get them at probably at below or market rates for them to do it. They really want to help these schools take that money and invest it in new revenue producing opportunities. And so, for instance, like as we move into a world of streaming and fast channels and all these other opportunities that are there, this would allow a school to take that, because again, if you realize the SEC, not the SEC, the Big 12, they didn't have their own TV network. So the universities did not invest in, or their network partners did not invest in them to build out studios to create content out there. So they're a little bit farther behind in that area. So I think you're going to see some of this money be tied to enhancing their ability for content creation, storytelling, etc. It talks about how they can create more revenue opportunities in arena. Is that taking out static signage, which you mean it's a sign that's up there that's there year round, and replacing with LED signage, which can be rotated out and create a much larger amount of inventory. So, and which then can be sold. So I think those are some of the things that they're looking to do. And one of the interesting things I saw this morning, even was reading, was that Redbird is also tied in with as a major investment with Paramount Global. What that means is that they own CBS. So does that put them through their relationship closer to a CBS deal that CBS can get a better understanding of what happens? And in the next round of negotiations pop up, will CBS be a bigger player in that because they've been able to do a deeper dive with some of the schools in the Big 12 and see what those opportunities might present themselves? So I think certainly there's an instant infusion of cash or capital infusion, as Andrew mentioned, but I also think a company like Redbird can bring some other strategic partners that as they do a deeper dive in here, how can they potentially help create new streams of revenue opportunities out there? So again, I think from a strategic standpoint, I think it makes sense, and they're not giving up equity, which I think is something that a lot of the schools or having to extend their grant of rights, which is another issue that most of these folks tend to get serious heartburn over when those things are mentioned as part of a P&E capital infusion call.
Interesting stuff.
And instead of just one school, they get every school to do that in the Big 12.
Yeah.
They get all of them, as opposed to placing a bet on.
My understanding is that each school can opt into this. That's the idea. Right. I think that you don't have to do it if you don't want to, but you may get to 30 million access to dollars if you opt in. And the details, again, devils are there always, but I think the issue is going to be each school feels now some autonomy because they can decide, do we do this or not? We will define this relationship in some respects for ourselves and go forward. I can see that being more comfortable than what the Big Ten had tried to put forward as a global thing here, and saying, well, if you don't opt in, you don't get any money, and that's it. And Michigan and certainly among others came in and made some pretty strong noise about this, and that kind of backed things off. It may not be gone. I mean, I don't think that they've given up on the idea of doing something, but it's definitely quiet right now.
No, I do think again that the Big Ten is definitely on pause for a while, but I think again what Brett Yormark's done at the Big 12 is again creating these opportunities here to think again a strategic partner to Redbird does a lot in the sports world. They're investing in a lot of new technology companies, other things out there that we probably haven't even heard or read about yet. And if this can be sort of an R&D place for them to create opportunities and create more revenue generation, I think particularly in content, because I think that's going to be something that's always going to be very valuable in there. And it could be new ways new production techniques, new areas there that can be second screens, all these different things that the people are talking about that potentially have the capability for monetization. I think again, that's there's an opportunity there for these schools to have a little bit more strategic resources at their disposal than just trying to do it all on their own. So I think it's another step in this direction, and we're going to continue to hear and read about these things as time goes on, just because of the ability. I think that a lot of these people think, and again, I think all of us on this panel think that there are more revenue opportunities in college athletics. You just heard Brett talk about the CFP, what they can do. And in the next round of negotiations, getting an Amazon and or Netflix involved in these types of negotiations are only going to continue to drive that content higher, because that is the creme de la creme at the end of the day of those championships. So I think again, everyone's looking for those opportunities, and again, I think these are ones that do make sense for the industry.
Well, it's very clear that following the money is what you've got to do here. That it's all about
follow the money.
And there must be money involved, or you wouldn't have these investors.
Well, the Big 12 is certainly not happy because they see the SEC and Big 10 as the big revenue generators out there, and they're playing at best third fiddle to them right now. And the ACC is its own world, and we won't get into that today necessarily, but the Big 10 has always felt, even when I was there, we were still as Texas A&M and as part of that team, there was always a bit of a challenge there because the money wasn't enough. Mm-hmm. And part of it was how the Big 12 came together. Part of it was the footprint. Part of it was just the leadership or lack thereof. I knew Dan Beebe pretty well, but I was never impressed by his brilliance, let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. And he got things done to some extent, but it just didn't work out in the long run. And I think there was a lot of problems there. And some of those, Ninus did a lot to correct that. And the current commissioner is doing well in terms of finding new ways. But I think the driver is on them. I mean, Big 12 sees we have to do something different, something unique to be able to get ourselves anywhere close to where our two big brothers are. And I'm not surprised the commissioner is feeling very committed to trying to get a way forward that's going to generate more revenue without giving up what they feel is most important to them, which in this case is equity.
Yeah, and think about this too. I mean, you've got Texas Tech in its model. They're fortunate to have some very well-heeled donors that have allowed them to invest, and I think those investments are certainly paying off right now in spades. If you're looking at
Big time.
Texas Tech athletics, but I think what these are going to do is they're going to help the TCUs and the Kansas States of the world who may not have that access to these revenue opportunities. And with strategic and smart leadership, they're going to create more ways to generate revenue as well. That's going to help them be more competitive in this environment. And we realize, and we don't, and we certainly all can think in 3 to 5 years, this is not going to be the same landscape that we're seeing. So these guys are all positioning themselves to be at the table when the next game of musical chairs is played.
Yeah, amen to that.
Dr. Loftin, I always think of you because you introduced to us the academic and the athletic side, and sometimes they're at odds. This actually keeps athletic departments from getting money from the academic side, correct? Or can help.
It can help. I mean, there's always this balance here. I mean, we've lived for a while in a place, Texas A&M has certainly, that is pretty flush with cash. Okay, if you look at the stack up of football expenses by those in the current CFP, those 12 schools, number one, it's clearly Alabama. Number two is clearly Texas A&M, but they aren't in the top four. You see, think about that a minute. So money gets you so far. Money gets you so far, but you could look down to Tulane. It's at the bottom of the list, basically, guys. Think about that. Tulane has managed to make it there. Now, how far they'll get, we can argue about that and how it works out. But that's the issue I think it's going to require grappling. And I want your comment on this, guys. How is it going to be when you come together with this new generation for the contract for the CFP and you talk about who is getting there and how they're getting there? The Big Ten wanted a lot of automatic qualifiers. The SEC rejected that idea. How do you see that really working out financially? It's going to be a problem because it looks like that it took money to get there, but there's schools in that mix of 12 schools that are not that wealthy. At least I don't think not that wealthy. How is this going to play out?
Can those schools do it year after year after year? No. It's going to be a different group of five or group of six.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Right. And it's interesting because the Big Ten also floated almost like play-in games at the end of their conference. If they were going to have a certain number that were going to get in there, is going to be the most rewarding. Part of the problem we have is once we got rid of divisions, now we're going to tiebreakers to send even to conference championship. And then you look at a Miami that didn't even get to one, but yet they're the ACC representative. I think there's going to have to be some more hard and fast rules. My thought with the SEC was this. We can have automatic qualifiers, but what happens the year that we have 6 or 7 schools who belong in there? I want all 7 in there. You heard Greg Sankey said, we deserve 9 teams in the college football. And I get where he's coming from as well. To me, this is a committee that has to learn from its past. That 2025 is not the only year that they have missed on some things or gotten things right. I think if you go back to 2 years ago, an undefeated Florida State is 6th. Georgia loses a conference championship game and is 5th. Alabama loses this year, doesn't move at all. Indiana and Ohio, like there's got to be something. I don't think it's got to be total transparency, but we kind of have to know what the rules are. But moving forward in the next 4 years is going to look very differently. This is Andrew talking. Then at the end, P4 is not even going to invite G6 to the party. They're going to keep all the money to themselves and have their own championship. I've told you my feeling is I think it goes to a breakaway. These schools, the 64, whatever the number is, there's going to be a breakaway. No more sharing. We're going to do that. In between, we'll see. But I think in the past, it was Boise, Cincinnati. This year, you have 2 in James Madison and Tulane. I don't know how they have the long-term success, or if they're like Indiana, do they do it again? But I think there's always going to be that savvy, well-built G5, G6 school that's going to be knocking on the door of that playoff. Again, because they are built right, that they are built using the portal, using the players, retaining their players, having a lot of experience on those teams. I think those are the ones that will have success. And I don't know if it's automatically tied to how much money, but using their money the most wisely.
Ditto. Yeah.
Very true. The challenge, I think, right now is how these schools can sustain. Indiana at least has the Big Ten. I mean, they have a substantial revenue base there, and so they have more than a James Madison will ever have in terms of access to the capital to be able to grow and sustain a successful team. I know people. People are going to look. If you don't have an affiliation with one of the players there, one of the teams there, you're going to say, "Wow, wouldn't it be great if James Madison upset or Tulane upset?" That's the way the dance is. That's the way the tournament is in the basketball world. It's you're dreaming for that school that comes along and absolutely surprises everybody. That's the fun in it all. And having 12 teams, the chances are much higher now. There'll be something like that happening, and that's okay. If we go to 16, there'll be even more of that, I think, going forward. I'm not against this by any means, but I think you said it right. The transparency, legitimacy. Are you going to be a legitimate member of this group of 12 now, or maybe 16 in the future here? Even the ACC has come up now and said, we have to fix our tie problem.
Mm-hmm.
It was obvious this time it was a problem, and now here we are. And you see the results of it, and that's got to be fixed. But even beyond that, the committee has to be, I think, very consistent, even though they change over a bit year to year, as to how they apply these so-called rules that they've talked about in terms of governing who they pick. This time, it was very, very interesting at the end of this process as to who ended up there and why. And again, you analyze this by money and things like that. You see some degree of relevancy and some degree of consistency, but it's not throughout the entire number of 12. And therein lies a challenge of, are you legitimate?
It's a fair question. It's a very fair question. Yeah, I just, again, some of the cracks that came in. When you have someone on ESPN saying maybe ESPN should not be having these rankings this soon and all these shows, I'm like, but that's what you all wanted, because now you have all your talking points when it comes out on a Monday night or a Tuesday. And that's all I told you this was part of the danger. We reduced college football to 12 or 15 teams, but now we're saying, oh, we talk Notre Dame and Notre Dame and Notre Dame, and all of a sudden the 10 seed's Miami. Well, we don't know how they got to Miami. We don't know how the committee got to that. What changed in a week that neither school played? All committees can do this, not just football. We have the same thing in college basketball. Look, Buzz Williams got in trouble. He called him out going into the NIT, and they didn't like it. But all we heard from the committee was, oh, it's really hard. Okay, don't do it. Take your name out. Let someone else do it. And I think he was just calling for more transparency. And my whole problem through that whole thing, and guys, I was in that room in Tampa when the name did not come up, and no one on the committee heard the sobs. And no one on that committee walked to the bus and got on the plane. That was dead silent. No one looked those kids in the eye and told them why they did not make it. Well, that year, and this is my problem, that year, the conference tournaments didn't matter. We don't know that going in. So A&M's doing all they can. They knock off 3 unranked teams. They lose in the championship. It didn't matter that year. And then the rules changed the next year that the conference championships do. So to your point, Dr. Loftin, you're exactly right. There's got to be some parameters that these teams know, because going forward, now the SEC is going to play 9 conference games. They're going to have one of those matchups non-conference against a P4, and that's what the SEC and the Big Ten want to do. So that's 10 games. Right there, they're winning on strength of schedule. It doesn't matter the other ones. They're going to have 10 P4 games. That's going to be hard for the G5 to match. As you know, now there's a shrinking number of games that they can play when they're already being taken up. So, yeah, again, I don't want to go to straight computer, because there's something to the eye test as well. But, yeah, there's got to be some kind of standard that has to be set, I think, for all committees going forward.
I've seen this for years with the non-revenue sports. The committees get mindsets about who's going to be in at the end of the season. And I saw it in volleyball this particular time. The seeding in volleyball was clearly biased, okay? And the results of the playoffs so far have shown that very clearly. So get over it, guys. I mean, can you not stand back from your own interest in a school and your own biases and try to be objective about how you make a decision as to far as how you seed people? And you see it every year in all these seeding processes going across not just basketball, but the non-revenue sports too. And that's what makes people very upset, and rightly so. Now, if you're the winner, you're happy, obviously. But look at what happened. Only 2 of the 4 seeds have progressed into the Final Four in terms of the volleyball playoffs right now, the Final Four. And we're all happy about A&M being part of that equation, certainly. But why weren't they a 2 seed to begin with? Why were they a 3 seed? That's the question you've got to ask.
It's a great question.
I can understand why they won a 1 seed, but I saw schools that were either 1 or 2 seeds that didn't have the strength of schedule, didn't have the really relevance that this 3 seed had right now. And that just destroys people. All look at that. Say the committee is absolutely biased about things. Why pay attention to that? And it takes away from, I think, the real reason we want to see these teams emerge and compete for the prize, the natty they're going to get one of these days.
Well, I think about baseball seeding. We have to have a team in the West. Why? They're not good enough to host, but they host anyway. I don't agree with that. You know what? If all your hosts are in the SEC, hey, you know what? They funneled the money. They should get it. But every year it's always, well, we have to have someone in the West. My question is always why? They're not. You're rewarding lack of excellence if it's supposed to mean something.
The West is so weird. The West is so weird, Andrew.
Yeah.
In terms of how they are. The California market is what it is. Okay.
Right.
And it's a very broad thing with no real winners in that situation. And you got these other tiny states there that just don't have the wherewithal to put forward the teams.
Yeah.
I see John being anxious here right now. He should jump in and put his 2 cents in.
I'm enjoying listening to you. I mean, I used to joke when I was at Fox Sports we would try to get advertising deals done with franchisee owners. And so you'll have like 25 franchisee owners and they're all for the same company. And I swear you couldn't get them to agree today was Wednesday. So, you're going to have those issues. So that's when you have a committee, you just got to expect that. And, just be prepared to deal with the questions that come up about it. Again, I think the Miami Notre Dame one was, okay, they messed that up earlier, but at the end of the day, Miami beat Notre Dame. So,
right. You make a great point though, John. You have to have someone who can explain it. Yeah. It was never explained throughout very clearly.
No, that was
I didn't think that was done well. And I don't know if that's a PR person to do that. I don't know. I think we were left with more questions than answers.
You're taking guys. I mean, here's the thing: you're taking guys that are ads of company. Of these companies have a lot more issues to deal with than right now. What they're dealing with on there, and so they're not the spin meisters that somebody else could be with that. You need, get your Heather Dinich out there to spin it for you. You make her the voice of the CFP, so you can kind of put it all together. But that's not what they. But again, it makes for great TV because people are watching to see it. And again, you talk about wanting to get rid of the show. I mean, that thing probably averaged 800,000 viewers. Probably over 1 million when it was all tape delayed and watched every week because people wanted to see it. Give them something to talk about. I mean, half our podcast this day has been about the seeding process. So it matters. It brings it to the forefront. At the end of the day, I think it creates awareness of what's happening, right, wrong, and different. I think one thing great about sports fans is they're passionate, on either side of these ages. You would hate us to be ambivalent. Who cares who they seed? Yeah, whatever. Let's just play it out on the field. I think that's part of the process. And TV helps again shape those views.
Andrew Monaco, czar of college sports.
I accept. I accept. And the first thing I'm doing. We're all getting raises.
What percentage?
I don't know how popular that's going to be with everybody else.
What percentage will I get?
Hey, happiest and safest of holidays to you both. Always a pleasure. Thanks for arranging this one as well. This was great. I appreciate Brett joining us.
Our final show of 2025, gentlemen. So happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you. Have a great New Year. Let's celebrate New Year in Arlington, Texas.
Wouldn't that be great? That would be awesome.
I have my tickets already picked and reserved.
Well, then we have to. Dr. Loftin has tickets. I can't think of any better excuse than that.
All right, I think you jinxed us there. I'm just saying.
We might have to cut this out before Saturday.
Let Nick take care of it.
Thank you both. Again, be safe. Have a great time this holiday season. For Nick Savage, for Richard Zane, our producers, for Dr. Loftin, for Jon Heidtke, I'm Andrew Monaco. Again, happy holiday season greetings. Merry Christmas, everyone. If we don't talk to you, Happy New Year as well.